Mr. President, the Western media are writing that the U.S. has banned long-range strikes on Russian territory with their weapons, specifically ATACMS. Can you confirm this? And do we now need to get permission from Western countries, if there are supposedly their own alternatives? And for you, Prime Minister Carney, Ukraine, together with its closest partners, is developing security guarantees, as you mentioned earlier. What kind of security guarantees can Canada provide Ukraine? Are you considering sending troops here? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Today, to be honest, we are using our long-range weapons of domestic production. And lately, to be honest, we have not been negotiating such matters with the United States of America. You remember there were different signals about our strikes, in response to their strikes on our energy sector. That was a long time ago. Today, we do not even remember this. So for me, this is news. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you. Thank you for the question. As far as the security guarantees are concerned, I think we all understand that the core of the security guarantees, the foundation of them, is robust Ukrainian armed forces, and that the military equipment today and tomorrow. The defense industry is here. The training capacity is there. And I know that since Russia's illegal seizure of Crimea, Operation Unifier, within which Canada has trained 45,000 Ukrainian troops, I think it will be even more important in the future. But that is buttressed by it, should be buttressed by the coalition of the United States, potentially the United States and other states. We are working with our allies in Ukraine on the realities of those security guarantees on land, in the air and at sea, and I would not exclude the presence of troops.
Brian Stewart from CBC, Prime Minister, Russia has rejected the idea of a security guarantee backed by NATO and European forces on land. How do you assess the chances of a ceasefire? You also said you do not exclude the presence of Canadian troops on land. Are you talking about training or peacekeepers? And if you could, please answer that in French. President Zelensky, you spoke about the importance of Canadian troops being present. What else can you say about that?
Well, the first is, we need a cessation of hostilities. We need a ceasefire. We can call it a ceasefire or a truce. It is necessary to stop the killing. But there will be military force in Ukraine, Ukrainian military force. There will be no exclusion of any routes for Ukraine to the EU or NATO. Any routes in that direction. And there will be security guarantees. There will be security guarantees in any ceasefire. That is the lesson of Minsk. That is the lesson of 2014. That is the lesson of history. We need to trust and verify. But deterrence must be anchored in those security guarantees. Of course, it starts, as I said, with the Ukrainian army. We will strengthen it. But then I welcome, without specifying, I welcome the openness of President Trump to some form of participation in that. Now the rest of the question is under discussion. About specifics. About modalities. But it is not the choice of Russia. How the future sovereignty, independence and freedom of Ukraine will be guaranteed. It is the choice of Ukraine. And the decision of the partners. Thank you for the question. According to, for example, one of the documents on the security guarantees for Ukraine, namely the Budapest Memorandum, Russia was one of the guarantors of this security. One of the guarantors, at the same time, violated its own guarantees, violated its own promises. Therefore, we are not talking about security guarantees from the Russian Federation. We are talking about security guarantees that will protect us from the Russian Federation, from its aggression, from the repetition of full-scale aggressive steps in the future. And that is why the circle of countries should be those countries that the people of Ukraine trust. Not one person, but the people of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine trust the coalition of willing. The countries that were there at the very beginning of this aggression. For example, the countries that imposed sanctions. The countries that provided arms. The countries that provided humanitarian support. The countries that strengthened us during the energy blackouts. The countries that helped us bring back children, people from the camps, and many other things. And of course, number one, the countries that are able to protect Ukraine. As the Prime Minister said, in the sky, on the sea, on the ground. The question of presence on the ground is important for us. It is too early to talk about it. First, the infrastructure will be prepared. And, of course, the Ukrainian army will play an important role in this infrastructure. That means part of the security guarantee should be the strength of the Ukrainian army. The domestic production, all these opportunities, and financial opportunities as well.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. President. The first question to you, Mr. President. After the blows of justice on friendship, and your conversation and request to Donald Trump, has there been a more significant impact on Viktor Orban? In particular, on his retirement from the opening of the negotiating clusters? So, do you have more positive expectations that in September, Kyiv and Brussels will be able to open the first negotiating clusters? And my second question to you, Prime Minister. Can you tell us in more detail about the joint production of drones? When can it start? Where will it be located? Will it be only in Canada, or in Ukraine as well? Thank you.
Do you want me to start?
Тоді я почну.
Okay, I'll start.
Дуже коротко, оскільки
I'll be somewhat brief on
є
that,
певні
just because of
військові
confidentiality,
моменти
military
конфіденційності
confidentiality
та таємничості,
aspects.
але я маю
But I have to say
сказати,
that
що
we
ми
have been
дуже довго
discussing
і
this in
детально це
great detail for a long
обговорювали.
time.
І в Канаді, і в Україні буде це
Both
виробництво
in Canada and in
розміщуватися
Ukraine,
коротко. І може
this
починатися
production will be
просто
located
зараз.
shortly.
І ми розуміємо
And it
безпосередні
can start
потреби,
right
нагальні
now.
потреби українських збройних сил. І
We understand the
як партнер
immediate
України
needs,
ми працюємо
the urgent
напряму
needs of
в
the
спільному
Ukrainian armed
виробництві, про яке
forces.
ви говорили, а також ширше,
And
закуповуючи
as a
дрони з
partner of
інших
Ukraine,
джерел. І,
we are
звісно,
working
ми
directly in
будемо
the joint production,
за моделлю данською
which I have already
передплати
mentioned, buying
будемо
drones from other sources.
підтримувати виробництво тут в Україні. І
And of course, we will be
частково
following the
те, про
Danish
що ми
model,
домовилися з
the pre-purchasing
президентом
model
і з
we will be
міністром
producing here in
оборони,
Ukraine.
це можливість
And part
відповісти
of
на
what we
інші
discussed with the
потреби.
President.
Цілий пакет 2 мільярди
And
доларів.
the
Це те,
Minister
що
of
ми
Defense is
надаємо
the
наразі.
opportunity to meet
І
other
крім того,
needs.
маємо певну гнучкість, щоб Україна
And we have a
сама
whole
обирала,
package,
що
$2 billion.
безпосередньо сьогодні потрібно їй. Дякую.
This is what we are providing at the moment. And in addition, we have a certain flexibility,
Ми завжди
so that
підтримували
Ukraine can choose what it needs
між
directly
Україною і
today.
Угорщиною. А тепер існування
you.
дружби залежить від позиції
We have
Угорщини.
always supported friendship between Ukraine and Hungary.
Останнє запитання, будь ласка, Canadian Press.
And now the existence of friendship depends on the position of Hungary.